members of the Congress, members of the Cabinet, distinguished Americans, and guests. Few in the nation believed that fair housing would, in our time, become the unchallenged law of this land. And now, at long last, this afternoon, its day has come. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life.
I said to Joel, I want to go into real estate, because if those guys can do that business, the ones that we've been talking with, hell, I should be a slam dunk for me.
He looked at the contract and he looked at the address of the property and he says, "You're moving to Berwyn?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "That's where I want to live." He goes, "There's no Mexicans in Berwyn." And I said, I don't care.
So I had to learn how to speak English like the way I hear it from others. So I had to practice in front of the mirror and, make sure that I kind of be fluid in what I'm saying.
Title VIII, the Fair Housing part of the Civil Rights Act, was not much more than tissue paper. Started to get listings, make deals, and the community organizations attacked us that first year. Breaking our office windows, demonstrating in front of the office, coming into office, call and jam our telephones all day long. Stop selling in our neighborhood, click up. Stop blockbusting in our neighborhood, click up. Many times we were sitting before lawyers and appearing for hearings, and you stop working when you're preparing. That was not our intention. I wasn't coming out in the marketplace to say I'm going to change the real estate industry, but I aspired, and I've always aspired, to play at its highest level. Right away in '71, I started going to IAR meetings, and I'd be the only one look like me.
The role of the real estate industry wasn't always on the right side of that. There was a concept of private property rights that was going on at that time, which was, it's my property. You can't tell me who I can rent to or who can buy it. Changing that perception of what property rights were, I think, is part of the struggle that we went through as an industry.
There was no other organization picking up that fight for people of color. Black membership wasn't welcome nor allowed in other associations of housing. It definitely bred a need to birth an organization that would fight for people of color.
The Fair Housing Act in 1968 had no teeth. There was no HUD enforcement mechanism. There was a lot of education, a lot of outreach to realtor boards and therefore to members to get people to sign this agreement, explaining why the voluntary agreement was better than these individual agreements out there, and it was a way to promote fair housing. And then leading up to 1988 was an effort to expand the Fair Housing Act in two ways: to give enforcement authority to HUD and to add familial status and people with disabilities to the protected groups. So fair housing training became a part of becoming a realtor, and in many places a part of staying a realtor.
We all want the same thing. We want a nice place for our children to grow up. And it's not just the house, it's a community, that there are good schools, there's safety, there's police protection. Folks take care of their property as best they can. We all want the same thing.
Fair housing doesn't mean equal. You know, doesn't mean that the $1 million homes are going to be, be reciprocated on in the underserved communities. That's, to me, I believe that what we're looking for is a community that can be holistic in and of itself, where it can be sustaining, meaning that the people who live there can work in that community and have a normal life, a normal healthy life, and project for their children in the future.
You know, you have white flight that still takes place. You have appraisal issues that are incredible, that erode away, you know, that wealth that families, you know, get into home ownership. One of the things families get into home ownership for. Would there be improvements? Definitely. But are there still tremendous strides and advocacy warranted to address? Definitely.
Daughter-in-law is Asian American. And whenever they show houses to her only, they show less houses than when she's with the husband. I think that's subtle, but not subtle, because you can tell that there is discrimination, and that you're being limited, given limited houses to see. You know, we're all fighting for non-discrimination. You know, Martin Luther King has gone, and we're still thinking about him, or we're still doing the same things.
She looked at me and she told me, I'm only going to sell this house to a minority. Don't bring me any white buyers. And she was white. She says, don't bring me any white buyers. I'm only going to sell this to a Hispanic or a black person. And I looked at her and I said, we can't discriminate.
Diversity is not every race doing business in black neighborhoods. That's not diversity, right? And I've attended diversity trainings where I've had to like scratch my head, you know, because that tends to have been what gets perpetuated. Diversity would be black and white and all races and colors and creeds being able to do business, transact business for our members across the state, right? That would be blacks and white neighborhoods and so on. Like, it would be a collage of everybody seeing an opportunity to do business.
One of the many hats that I wear professionally is I am also a real estate pre-license instructor. And as I've said, to me personally, the fair housing chapter in the pre-license textbook was really nothing more than a chapter of stuff that had to be memorized and something out of ancient history, because I'd not seen it myself with my own eyes. And the last time I taught that chapter, which was just last week, Frank Williams' story was in that. So learning more about the history of this, learning more about the work that still needs to be done, has been really important to me, because it has directly impacted the way that I'm teaching what will be the next generation of real estate professionals, so that they understand that which I did not understand for the first 18, 19 years of my time in this profession.
I am encouraged. I'm encouraged that, that we're having these conversations today. From the perspective of 50 years ago, they were very uncomfortable, and even today they're uncomfortable. Be a little uncomfortable. If we're gonna grow, you have to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And if we can do that, I think that we can all move to a different level.